Welcome to Oh no, my app stopped working. Hey, I'm Eric, and as the title implied, I got a problem. If you remember the app I used to show the process of putting an app into App Source, then and if you can hear something in the background, this is Halloween, and Halloween in Canada, at least here in Vancouver, is fireworks. So it's not, I'm not in a war zone. Well, it feels like a war zone, but it's not. This is just Halloween, late night Halloween here. Not dressed up. Sorry about that. Anyway, the app I used as an example of how to get something onto App Source was a very simple app that we made in an earlier video that would pull down exchange rate from something called openrates.io. Well, that service is no longer open. Doesn't exist anymore. So this app is dead. So I thought I would fix it. And somebody suggested, hey, can you show another example of something with JSON, a web service, and so on? And so, I got an idea. So what we're gonna do is that we're gonna repurpose this app to use a different service and see if we can make it work with that. Not sure if this is a one-part or two-part video. Let's see how far we get before all hell breaks loose again outside. Anyway, the service that I have selected to use is something called float rates, and I have been looking all over this website to see if there's any terms of service and what you can do and not do, and nothing. I can't find anything. And they do have JSON feeds, and it's quite simple, so we'll just get the latest rates here, and you choose a what is your base currency. Then there's a JSON fee, and if we format that nicely, it actually looks like this. So there's a JSON object, and this object has a key for every currency, and within the currency we got the code and the another code and a numeric code and a name and a rate and a date of the rate and the inverse rate. So that should be enough for us to make this work. Let me see where we are. Here is the app. I just tested that it still works, and I actually just changed the names and actually, let me just get rid of translations for now, so we see the updated text. Anyway, let's find. So the whole idea behind this was that it was a pretty simple app. So the old web service, got that right here. It would grab through a HTTP client, it will grab the JSON, and if all is good, then it will read it into text variable, and then we will create. In this case, I think, let's see what we were actually using here. We would get it into a JSON structure called root, and then we'll get something from there and loop through the currencies and do stuff. So okay, anyway, let's create a new function down here. And what was the get rate for date? Well, get float rates. Let's just do that to begin with. So we know we're gonna talk to a web service. So let's start by actually grabbing a HTTP client, and I'll just call that client. I was just programming some C# before, and then in C# you specify the type and then the variable, not the other way around. So basically we're gonna do the exact same things. By the way, let's see this. This was because I did something with the security thing at some point. Let's ignore that. We're basically just gonna grab this right away. So if client.get, and we can do this the simple way. So we'll do just response, HTTP response. Let's see if this is enough. And what was the URL? Well, the URL was this plus a exchange rate, a currency code, which is our base currency. So let's get gen, let's set up, let's call it setup. I think that's better. Hi, crazy typing. Gen, let your setup. So setup.get to begin with. Now then we should probably do something like if setup.lcy code is equal nothing, then error, you must specify a LCY. And let's actually can we do like this? We do field name here plus in plus setup dot table caption plus to use this function. I'll get back to that at some point. I think the idea here is that what I was thinking while thinking and typing at the same time was that if we need to produce something that can be translated, then I actually need to turn this into a format so we can get the table field name and table name correctly into the sentence. We'll ignore that right now. Anyway, so here is plus LCY code and comma plus something else. What was it? .json. That was it. .json. So we have built the URL, and then let's add the response. So if this is good, and else, in this case it's bad, so we will do the exact same thing as we did up here. So if this fails, see, I actually did a lot of nice error messages here. So let's just grab those. So one of the reasons that client.get will fail is because environmental issues, out of resources or anything like that. So otherwise it won't fail. Then the function will work, but you'll get an error in the response. And if you can find the old video, I went through a lot of stuff here. So the next thing we'll do is test for success and else, and then I think all this stuff is fancy error handling, and you can check the other video for what it actually did. Let's create something called content.txt text. Sorry, it's actually kind of sloppy of me just copy pasting code. Anyway, let's talk about for a second what is happening here. So if client.get, so if we're able to execute the get command somehow, then we test if they're on the HTTP response message structure, there is a function called isSuccessful_status_code. We could also do if response.http status code equal 200, but potentially there could be more status code that meant success. So it's kind of nice to use this one. So if it's success, great. If not, then what we're testing for here is if it has been blocked by environment, which is very. Let's go back into this guy. You know, when you're, let's go to extension management and see if we can find, here's the app. So I go into configure and you see this is actually not allowed right now. So this one will fail, but we could tell it to allow it. So now it's not blocked by environment. Now it's blocked by environment. Now it's not blocked by environment. If not blocked by environment, then we can usually, if we got an error, quite often if you get an error, you still get some sort of response back. So we can try to read if there is any response and show that. Otherwise, we'll just show the HTTP status code. So fancy error handling on this one, but let's focus on that this went well, because that's what we want to do, right? So now we can do if response dot content dot, and now we have options here. We can see read from, sorry, no, that will make sense. No, read as. So this one reads the content into the provided text. That is what we want to do. There's actually two overloads here, so we can read the content into a string, or we can read the content into a stream. So we'll just read it into content.txt. So if this goes well, then we know there's content, else then I guess server did not return any data. That's probably the error code we want to add here, because it went well, but we didn't get any data back. So now we can, let's call that rates. Now we got the text. So now we have the option to say rates, and now we can read. Hey, now we can read the text string into the JSON object. So that when we use read from, and this one is mad at me because I right now put a lot of begin and ends, and some of them are not necessarily yet, and it might be. So let's just ignore this right now. I think it's actually the big one here. Or should we see if we can get it to ignore this one? So now we're going to read from content.txt into rates. If that goes well, let's actually get rid of this begin also. There we go. If this goes well, then we're in business. We have a, I think we'll actually put a begin here, like this. So now we have the JSON structure that looks like, where did I put it? Look like this. So the easiest way would be now that we actually, let's create a record called Quorek. I think that's what I think that's what I call it up here also. Yeah. So now we could, let's actually, before we do a lot of stuff, let's put a breakpoint here. Change this guy not to call the one, but call flow rates. And let's just see if this would even compile. There you go. And see if we get some data back. Before we, sometimes I have the ideas just to run through the goal and not check anything before that. So let's try this guy. We got the breakpoint. No, we didn't. We got the breakpoint in the other function. I guess we need to check what is actually being called. Where from? Haha, see this one. They should probably just go to run instead. How about that? That was kind of funky. It said only run reference, but there was clearly two references to the code. Anyway, let's try again. We got a breakpoint. Here we go. Do we have an LCY? We have one that's called CAD. So let's call get. And let's look at response. HTTP status code is 200. Excellent. Recent code okay. Is successful status code true? Is blocked by environment false? And there's even a bunch of headers. So everything is awesome. This is pretty good. So we got this. We were able to read into context TST. So we have all the stuff here. And let's see if we, well, nothing were in the if. So let's see what's in rates now. We got a JSON structure. That is pretty awesome. Excellent. We are in business. Okay, so let's do this. So if currec.findSet, then repeat until currec.next equals 0. So now we're just looping through all the currencies. And we got rates. So let's create another one called rate, which is also a JSON object. And let's just put this back on the screen. So we have this structure now. Now we're running through the currency codes and we want to get this guy. This is lowercase. So let's try to do that if rates.get. So we need a key, which is currec. I think it's just called code. And this is actually a code, so we don't get the string. So we'll do lowercase around it. And the second parameter on get is where we want to put it. And typically you'll always end up when playing with JSON that you need to have a token available. We can kind of use tokens, but then type convert them all the time, or typecast them all the time is the proper term. I prefer to do something like this, so it makes a bit more sense. We can actually get rid of another begin, and if we really want to. So in this case, that if we can get a object or a token, which so a JSON token can either be an object, an array, or value. Those are the three basic structures of a JSON. But we're getting a token. So we see if we can get this structure. So we get by this key, so we'll get this structure in rates, in rate. Then And what do we want? Well, we certainly want a exchange rate. That's what we came from. So decimal. Now we can do what we'll do is that we'll say rate equal t as object. We could ask if t is object. There isn't is object, but let's hope that t is an object in this case. So now we could do now we could say that if rate dot get. So what are we interested here? We know that it's US dollars, so we're interested in the inverse rate. So we want to get inverse rate, and we're putting that into t. And if that succeeds, then x rate is equal t as value. So what we got back is a value in this case, and the value we would like as a decimal. That's pretty good. Then we also want the date, and that might be interesting. Let's see how we solve that. So if rate.get, and what is this called? Just date. We'll use a t again then. Let's see how this goes. Exchange rate, exchange date. How about that? Exchange. Well, at least it's a date time. No matter what, this is a date time. So let's try to invent something. So t as value dot as date time. Okay. You know what? Let's add a breakpoint to this guy and see what we get. See if we're on the right track. I'll hit a 5. We're building and we're building. We're deploying. Come on, BC. It's pretty fast today. I like that. Get from float. We got a break. That's pretty good. F10. Let's look at rate here. So rate is the UAE dirham, whatever that's pronounced. That's pretty good. So we get a T, and T is, see if we can mouse over that, otherwise we can type T down here and see what we get. T is clearly a value. .33. Let's see if we're able to, can we search in this guy? AU, maybe? No, hang on, it was not Australian dollar. Go back. Back. So what is rate? AED. We get the inverse rate here. That looks right. Excellent. So now we get the date. Let's see if we get the date. You felt that? I hit a 10 and it stayed on the same line. So let me hit that again. Let's go back and see what happened. Unable to convert JSON value to nav date time. And the reason for that, this is exactly what where's the nice formatted one? Oh, down here somewhere. Is that this is not usually how you format a date in JSON. This is how you format a date in certain internet protocols. I think this is called This is called exactly the one I had here. This is called the RFC 1123 pattern. You know what? That is just... Oh, let's skip that. So how do we actually parse a date like this? Let me show you. There's a trick. There's always a trick, isn't there? We gotta need a bit of help from a dear friend of ours called the type helper. Code unit type helper. So the type helper, let's see. Type helper has a function called evaluate UTC date time. And that one takes a text and returns a date time. So I think all we need to do is saying instead of t as value as date time, we'll do as text. And then we'll pass that to this function. And that might just be enough. Interesting. I got my breakpoint. All is good in the world of breakpoints. This is interesting. Let's see. We got a break. That is good. F10, 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 F. Whoa! Bam. We are in business. So how did I know that there was a function like that? Well, there's actually a video on that code unit because it's a pretty cool code unit. But if we look at the code for that function, we can see that it's actually just using the evaluate function that's also there and passing the R. So if you remember the web page I was on, where this is called R in a standard date and time format in .NET. This is just passed into that one, so we see that there's a format and we have a try evaluate here, and there's still a format, and at some point this is passed into somewhere here, try pass X. So if we go back and see .NET try pass exact, the one that has a format in it will end up going back to this list of standard formats. So that is actually pretty helpful when you're dealing with types. So you can use the type helper. Okay, so I think at this point we have everything we need. So now let's go back up and steal some more code up here, because that's what we do. And we all know that most programming mistakes and bugs actually comes from somebody copying code. Currency exchange rate, that's the table. So now this one is X date. For some reason, this is still X date. This is okay. So in the other one I wanted the inverse rate. There were no inverse rate in that one. So in this case, we're actually not going to use the inverse rate. We're just going to use the rate we got, because this one gave us both versions. Starting date is not equal a date time. So we have to do a date time. What is it called? Hang on. What is it called? That's not date time to date. That's the one we want. DT to date to time. Wow, to date. Let's pass that. And I think that's it. Hey, 30 minutes, not bad. Let's try it out. I'll hit it 5. And the fireworks are still going off outside. I hope this has not been too annoying to listen to. Got a breakpoint, that's all good. Let's see how this goes. Boom, 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 boom. We don't. That was kind of interesting. What happens here? The date is not valid. What did I do? Oh, okay. This is classic. Actually, a great example of something that looks totally fine. And the error message was not helpful. The date is not valid. Can you see the problem in this line of code? Why is this breaking? Well, it is breaking because what is the primary key of the exchange rate table? Well, the primary key you can see with the asterisk is current, currency code, and starting date. Starting date is a date. So what I did here is that on get you need to pass variable matching the primary key. Clearly I didn't. But this does not create a compiler error, even though the compiler clearly knows the primary key of the table. It also knows the type of ex date. And then when it's getting called, it's trying to do some internal type conversions. This is weird. Anyway, the fix is pretty easy because we just do the DT to date here, and let's try again. But this is a weird error, and sometimes, you know, people can really get you can run into some weird situation where this sort of work and it seems to work, but it doesn't work. I think Get could need some sort of improvements. If there's anyone from Microsoft still on the line here, 33 minutes into the video, hey, we might want to look into that. Well, let's do this again. So if not get, well, in that case, we need to create one. So we'll insert it, and then we will validate all these things. And I will now remove the breakpoint and hit F5. And I think we are done. All the currency rates has been updated to the 31st Halloween. This looks right. It cost me 1.2 Canadian dollars to buy US dollar. And where are the other one? I have a relationship to it. Cost me roughly 19 cents to buy a Danish kroner, so that seems right. I think we're in business. Let's run it again. Let's see if it breaks if I run it twice. Oh, this is good. This is exactly what we would expect it to be. I would say mission accomplished. Now I'll clean it up and make sure that it's ready to go through the the app source validation. But yeah, I think we saved the app. Let me know in the comments below if there's something you thought I should do different, or if there's anything else you would like to see videos on. I try to do these Mondays video that are, working through a process like this, and trying slowly work the Thursday videos into smaller, more like a single tip per video. So suggestions for both are great. The list is long and it's only getting longer, but I love actually creating the videos you guys want to see. Anyway, that's it for this video. Have fun, stay safe, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.